Hello and welcome to my channel. In this second part, I'm going to talk about the ancient Indian civilization and Egyptian civilization together. Even though human beings had started living around the Indian subcontinent around 73,000 to 40,000 years back, yet the remains of human beings have been found up till 7,000 to 600 BCE, which was around the Indus Valley civilization. So, this Indo Aryan tribe had moved towards Sindh and Punjab, which is now in Pakistan, from Central Asian countries. Indus Valley civilization flourished during the Bronze Age, and not only it flourished around the Indus River, but it was also the cradle or the home of four major ancient civilizations like Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Indian, as well as Chinese civilization. The announcement was first made by the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India, Sir John Marshall, in the year 1924, that there is an ancient ruin in two cities. One was Harappa and the other was Mohenjo-daro. The meaning of Mohenjo-daro is Mount of Dead. Dayaram Sahni in 1921 carried out the excavation around the city of Harappa, which was called as Harappan civilization, and the major findings were sandstone statues of human anatomy, granaries, as well as bullock carts. R.D. Banerjee in 1922 led the excavation on Mohenjo-daro, which was the Mount of Dead. Here his great findings were the Great Bath, granary, then bronze dancing girl, as well as a seal of Pashupati, statue of a bearded man, and a piece of woven cloth. Another site which was excavated was in Kali Bangan by Ghosh in 1933. It was on the banks of the Ghagar river in Rajasthan. Here a fire altar, camel bones, as well as wooden plough was also excavated. Then there was another site or an important city, which is a lost city in Gujarat around Lothal, which was around the Bogwa River. R. Rao excavated in 1953, and the major findings were first, man-made port was found, there was a dockyard, as well as fire altars, and a game of chess was found. The most important feature of the Harappan culture and civilization was the town planning. How ancient civilization it was, but it was well planned as well as highly developed. There was a prominent town layout as well as structures, and all the houses and roads were made up of burnt bricks. There was a citadel in the center, which was a huge and large structure, which was mainly used for administration and also for rituals, which stands in the center of the town. Now, if you see the town planning, you will also see that the roads, they are well laid roads and they intersected at right angles. Along the roads, we also find residential houses, both big as well as small houses. The small houses consisted of a small room, maybe one room, and a courtyard, and big houses were huge houses which had their own private wells, kitchens, as well as pools for bathing. Every house had its own drain which opened into the main street drain. This showed that they had a very well developed drainage system and were highly well maintained and hygienic. There's another important structure which is called as the Great Bath, which is a huge structure made up of burnt bricks and is well laid. It was used basically for ritualistic bathing, and it is rectangular in structure. It has got blocks. Similar structures have also been found in other sites which were used as a granary. So there was a great granary which was also excavated, which was used for storing grains like wheat and barley. People of the Harappan civilization were quite artistic as well as they had their own industries. Harappan people used metals like bronze, gold, as well as silver. Several objects which are made up of gold are found, like beads, armlets, amulets, then other ornaments, necklaces. Bead making was an important profession at that time because beads were made up of gold as well as silver. Even they had agate, carnelian, and other stones. Even ivory was used as a carving for various bracelets and decorative items. There are various copper tools and weapons which they used for defense purposes like axe, saws, chisels, knives, spearheads, arrowheads. But the main metals which they used was silver, which was abundantly found in Mesopotamia, as well as it was traded, as well as gold was mined from Himalayan riverbeds. Then a famous bronze statue which was excavated, which is called as a dancing figure. It had right hand on the hip as well as left hand is hanging. It is a dance pose. Then the girl is not wearing anything except a number of bangles. This statue became very famous. The Indus Valley people not only used metals, they also used terracotta for making various figurines of males and females, as well as for making mother goddess, birds, monkeys, sheep, camel, bull, and other animals. They even made pottery. Pottery was coated in red and decorated in black patterns. The pottery had various figures carved on it, like palm, birds, fishes, leaves, animals, etc., which was depicted. The figures, pottery, as well as the statues and seals which have been excavated shows us a lot about the religion and the culture which was followed during this period. Most of the terracotta figurines which depict ancient civilization tell us a lot about the gods which were worshipped in those times, which used to be nature, like trees, sun. Then there was also a figure of mother goddess. Women were mostly worshipped and were shown wearing gold jewelry, necklaces, fan shaped headdresses, as well as bangles. And then there's also a seal which is showing a man having a yogic posture. He is surrounded by various animals. He is supposed to be Pashupati or Lord Shiva. He is the oldest Shiva, or he is the Lord of beasts, which he is sitting in front of a peepal tree, and there are worshippers who are kneeling in front of him, which is clearly depicting that it is Lord Shiva whom the people used to worship in those times. Then there are a lot of fire altars, animal bones, as well as ashes which were excavated near Kalibangan, which shows there were a lot of rituals as well as yajnas which were performed in those periods. Now, let us talk about another very extraordinary human civilization, which was ancient Egyptian civilization, which is very famous for its pyramids, pharaohs, tombs, mummies, and also flourished around the northeastern African belt, which was around the Nile River. River Nile, which is the world's longest river, supported human population from very ancient times. It was a huge source of water for irrigation and agriculture. Also made the floodplains heavily fertile for growing crops. So the ancient civilization which flourished around the Nile River were mainly agriculturalists. They grew various cereal crops like wheat, barley, grains, as well as fruits like figs, olives, apples, and also vegetables like beans and lettuce. Fish was a vital part of their diet, which they obtained from the river itself. Their houses were made up of mud bricks, and they also had the advantage of having black soil, which was highly fertile. So, the old kingdom of Egypt, which was around 2630 BC, it started with the dynasty of King Dosser. King Dosser had a healer as well as a priest. His name was Imhotep. So he asked Imhotep to make a funerary monument for himself, which resulted in the first ever stone built block, which was called as a pyramid, at Saqqara, which is in Memphis. It was supposedly the first ever built stone monument, which was a pyramid. There's another important and mystical monument which was built in the ancient Egyptian period, which is called as the Great Pyramid at Giza. This pyramid was constructed for King Khufu or Pharaoh Khufu during the reign of Menkaure. There were three rulers of the dynasty Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. Menkaure was a son of Khafre who constructed this pyramid at Giza. This was constructed at a time period between 2589 to 2566 BCE, and this pyramid is one of the seven wonders of ancient world. It was constructed by Egyptian men themselves. Around 100,000 men were required to construct this pyramid, and they worked for around 20 years to build it. The pharaohs or the rulers symbolized power. They had the status of gods, they were the divine rulers. They had absolute power and were extremely wealthy. And whatever pyramids they constructed, they used to spend huge amounts of money on that, which slowly got depleted over time period. Ancient Egyptians also had a lot of trade relations with other countries like Syria, Palestine, and other Middle Eastern countries. Therefore, they were very rich, especially in gold, ebony, ivory, etc. Another very spectacular ancient monument of Egypt is the Great Sphinx of Giza, which is a huge limestone statue which depicts a very mythical creature. It is said that the Sphinx depicts or symbolizes the solar deity who was called as Horus of the horizon. The face which you can see on the Sphinx, which is of a female, is supposedly Queen Hetepheres II, who ruled Egypt from 2700 to 2500 BCE. It was a tradition in ancient Egypt that whenever a queen ruled over Egypt, during its reign, it was depicted as a sphinx. It is interesting to know that Sphinx is not only found in Egypt but also in ancient Greece as well as in Persia. The oldest Sphinx is found and discovered in Turkey, which is as old as 9500 BCE. It is in the form of a lion gate. The pharaohs lived such an extravagant life that even after their death, the body was embalmed with natural spices, honey, vinegar, wine, so that to prevent it from decaying. It was believed that the pharaohs were immortals and they will resurrect back in the future. Mummification was an ancient technique of preserving the dead body of pharaohs as well as people of high ranks and order. Mummification was not only a process which was practiced in ancient Egypt, but also in Greece, in ancient Rome, in Persia, and other parts of the world. Even Alexander the Great, his body was returned from Babylon to Macedonia in a container of honey.